I'm a working man.
There's a new Jason Statham movie where he goes after sex traffickers. That's all I need. I'm in.
So listen, today's gonna be hard. Let's all go home with the same amount of fingers that we came with. Let's get it.
All right, so I went out to see Jason Statham's A Working Man. I've been sick all week. Everyone in this house has, but we're feeling good. David Ayer is back with Jason Statham. Was it last year? Is that when it was? We got the Beekeeper. This time, it's A Working Man. And I'm super excited to talk about this. I was really excited to see this movie, and I don't know why. I was just in the mood for a Jason Statham action movie. It feels like I get in the mood for that every year, and every year delivers because it feels like there is one every year nowadays. And so I'm curious to see what you all think of A Working Man down below, and let me know, what's your favorite Jason Statham action movie? This film is so simple. The basic premise is Jason Statham is a working man. He's a construction worker, but there's also more than meets the eye. And Michael Peña's character, well, he and his family, they're going through something devastating. Their daughter is taken. And I don't use that word lightly because this movie's premise and the idea behind it and pretty much everything about it feels like Taken from the get-go. It's a different way of getting there, but we get there nonetheless. I will say off the bat, Taken is a far better movie. Not talking about its sequels, just the first one. I was enamored by what that was able to do, but I was super pumped to see what A Working Man was going to offer me as a big fan of these types of dad movies. Somebody on Twitter got mad at me saying look, that's what they are. These types of, and I'm a dad. I'm a rad Kentucky dad. My daughter's at a pool party right now. She's learning how to swim. Boring. But look, sometimes we need a break, and everyone handles that differently. What I do as a dad is I look for a crazy, intense action movie. And my favorite thing to do is to go out to a theater, sit down in, this time, a very empty aisle. There were only like 6 people at the screening I was at. And watch a turn-your-brain-off action flick, but one that doesn't get too dumb. And that was my fear with A Working Man, because even though I do like this Jason Statham, David Ayer pairing, say what you will about how dumb it was, I enjoyed The Beekeeper. I thought that was really fun. One of my bigger surprises of last year because it wasn't terrible. And Ayer, his movies have been up and down, obviously. End of Watch is the one that stands out. And then you've got clunkers like Suicide Squad. Everyone knows that. But when he handles action, gritty, somewhat down to earth, I would argue that with this film. But like that dirty looking, like in the mud, fighting in the dirt, rolling around. Fights taking place at nighttime, intense choreography, usually revolving around a guy or a couple of guys that have a mission or something is compelling them to get back into their former ways. It's a very compelling angle for a movie like this, but we've seen it been done over, and I mean, Ke Huy Quan just had a movie that did that earlier this year. But what I like about A Working Man, similar to Taken, is this has a much more emotionally compelling angle where the daughter of this family that he knows and loves and really considers his family, I think Michael Peña and company, they do a great job of making you feel extremely emotional for them. Now, I do wish the movie would have went back to that a little more often than they did and replaced the 17 subplots that we got with maybe something a little more emotionally compelling. Again, we'll talk about that. But all in all, I think the supporting cast does a nice job. And Jason Statham, look, we know what he does. He does it well. I like the fact that Stallone was involved with writing this movie because it feels like he knows how to write characters like this, not overall movies. But Statham's really compelling, and I thought it was so funny at the beginning of the movie. He's like, I've left that life behind. And 5 minutes later, it's just like, all right. There are so many times in A Working Man where a character will do or say something and then kind of act against what they were saying. And inevitably, this film starts out on a really high note. I was in, and I wanted to love A Working Man because this is the kind of movie I like, even if it's a turn-your-brain-off schlock fest. It's one of those, we got a mob boss that worked for the mob boss underneath another mob boss situation. They're trying to do the John Wick. And when I say do the John Wick, I don't mean kill the dog. I mean we are attempting to build this world that exists, this drug trade, this sex trafficking trade. Some guy works for another guy who works for a guy, and ultimately there's a guy at the top who's in charge of everything, and yada, yada, yada. And they're trying to do all this while we're cutting back to Jason Statham just on this simple mission to save this girl. But to save this girl, this working man, this construction worker who has a very particular set of skills, has to infiltrate. Or at least that's his plan, to infiltrate, act like he's a part of it, get himself ingrained in it, and then try to solve the problem. All of those things make sense as I'm saying them to you, like conceptually. But as the movie was playing out, I was never lost with this film. It was more so just me like, that's unnecessary. Why is that plot point in here? Why are you doing that? Why is Jason Statham invincible in this movie? And look, we know he's going to fight well. That's awesome. But this dude gets shot at by several machine guns, several automatic rifles, a couple of times point-blank range, a couple of times, he's on a motorcycle. There's a dude with a literal machine gun right behind him. There's nothing to protect Statham's back, but the bullets are always only hitting the bike and then the trees around him. Yet this big target in the middle is never hit, and it was a machine gun. It's a machine gun. I'm just like, man, you talk about a grounded idea and premise with sex trafficking and involving something that, as a father, I don't love to see, but as a father, it's going to move me emotionally because a man's daughter is kidnapped, and like that, those scenes with Michael Pena, they were ripping my heart out. And so I'm like, yes, this is grounded. I love it. Statham's character also has a daughter, and he's trying to protect her, and David Harbour's in here, and there's a whole nother plot point. So there's something else we got to deal with. But I liked those elements. But when you got machine guns firing at our guy and he never gets hit, he feels impenetrable, he gets scratched and bruised a couple of times, like there's nothing to him. And I get it. They want to make him this badass character, as they should. He is Jason Statham. But there is a point where suspension of disbelief just goes out the window, yet you're contradicting that with an extremely grounded and supposedly emotional premise. And then when we do cut back to the girl that was kidnapped, there are a couple of things that happen with her that don't feel grounded, are out of the blue. Like, oh, we didn't establish that about her character. Like, they're really, I get it. They're going for the moment with this scene, but then it's like, my brain's having to stretch to believe all of this. And the film just kept doing it and kept introducing more bad guys and more bad guys, a cartoonish bad guy. There's lore to these bad guys that they tease, and they're trying to open up a new side of the world to us. And I'm just like, guys, you're losing sight of what should have made this movie great. And what does make this movie great? Well, that's the focus, and that's the more grounded elements. That is Jason Statham's working man. And unfortunately, the convolutedness of everything else just starts to surround the focus, put pressure on it, and ultimately cover what could have been a really entertaining time. And it is entertaining. Like, the overall vibe is awesome. It's just when you start to deconstruct, there's a lot to deconstruct, and there shouldn't have been. I see what it's doing. It's trying to be a throwback 90s action flick. It just didn't quite have that magic. So I need to know, what is your favorite Jason Statham solo action movie? What's your favorite David Ayer film? I'd love to know that below. And if you're watching it this weekend, you want to share this review, comment, like, tell me what you had for breakfast. Was it good? When a working man hits, it hits hard. Statham is thriving in his element throughout this gritty action flick. The specific focal point this story deals with is rock solid, but it unfortunately continues to add plot points at every turn, which ultimately creates an unnecessarily convoluted experience. For such a grounded start, this movie requires you to shut your brain off at several points, and this takes away from the emotional draw. The destination features solid payoff, but the journey tries to do too much. Is there another movie you want me to see before I do my March movies ranked video, which should theoretically come out tomorrow? Be on the lookout for that. Thanks so much for watching. We may do a live stream this weekend. Subscribe. Stay tuned.